Okay, Mayor Kane, you're now live on YouTube.
Thanks, Emily. And I have exactly 1 o'clock, so we'll call our meeting to order. We have a full council, and the clerk is CAO or president present, as well as other members of staff. Anyone have additions to the agenda? Okay, I don't have an addition, but an alteration perhaps. So our closed session today is going to be time sensitive. We need to go into closed, give or take, right around 2:30, depending on where we are in our open agenda. And if we're not finished, we'll take a break where it comes naturally and move in to closed to accommodate our consultants. And then we'll come back out and finish our open agenda, if that's okay with everybody. So with that information having been passed on, I have a prepared motion. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The agenda for the regular council meeting of October 19th, 2021 be approved. Thanks, Larry, and seconded by Scott. All in favor? And that motion is carried. I would ask about declarations of pecuniary interest. And I see none. So it will be recorded by our clerk, and we'll move to a public question period. I know we have had 2 questions from ratepayer with regards to the ATV situation. And I discussed this with our CAO, and we thought that would probably be most appropriate if we dealt with them when we got to section 14.7, which is where we're dealing with ATVs on our schedule. So unless someone has an objection to that, we'll move those questions there. It seems to fit there the best. Okay. Do we know if there are any other questions from the public today?
Through you, Mayor Kane, I have not received any. I don't, we can ask the clerk whether she's received any as well or not, but not aware of any further.
I can confirm we have not received any additional questions.
All right, thank you, Daphne. So that moves us to section 6, presentations and delegations. We have 2 today. 6.1 is a request for a proclamation of International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and it's presented by Cornerstone Family Violence Prevention Center. A friend of mine, Janelle Elsler, the manager of community engagement. Hi, Chanel, sorry, welcome. Having trouble with my tongue, Janelle.
That's okay. Thank you. Nice to see you. Thank you for that introduction, Mayor Kane. And thank you again for your participation in our Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event that took place at the end of September. I'm here today to make a request. As most of you are aware, Cornerstone is a not-for-profit organization that is located in Cobourg, and we service women and children throughout Northumberland County that have been impacted by family violence. And for a number of years, we've been involved in a provincial campaign called Wrapped in Courage. And this campaign involves shelters from all across Ontario, and it's governed by an organization called OAITH, which is the Ontario Association of Interval and Transitional Housing. And it really is a public awareness campaign to bring to light that November is the International Month to Eliminate Violence Against Women. And November 25th has been declared the International Day to Eliminate Violence Against Women. So this year for our Wrapped in Courage campaign, we are engaging municipalities all across Ontario to raise the Wrapped in Courage flag on the day of November 25th, which marks the 16 days of activism for violence against women. So I come to you today as the leaders of the Township of Hamilton to consider proclaiming November 25th the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and raising our Wrapped in Courage flag. I do have an example of the flag. If you would like to see it, I could share my screen. I will just pull that up right now. And it is, oh, I actually can't share my screen. It's that has been disabled, but I did include it in the package that I sent.
was just going to say that, we've all seen it. The
Okay,
package of the
wonderful.
sample proclamation was sent with our pre-reading. So
Perfect.
yeah, we're aware. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I wanted to present that to you today, and we hope that we can count on the Township of Hamilton Township to be a part of the November 25th Wrapped in Courage campaign.
So thank you very much. So we have, as I said, we've seen the sample proclamation in our pre-read. I'm going to open it up to members of council for any questions you might have of Janelle or opinions as to where we should head with this. Go, Larry.
I'd like to make a motion that we fly the flag on November 25th to bring light to this situation and fly that on the November 25th.
All right, do we have a seconder? Thanks, Scott. One to consider an addendum to this motion that we would also declare the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women as well. So you'd make that all one motion? Are you okay with that, Scott?
I sure am. I just like to say thank you for the presentation. And at the same time, I'm sitting here disappointed in the fact that we actually have the circumstances we do in the public. And I don't know how to word that properly, but hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say.
I do. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I agree. And I see the statistics that get sent in there. I can't come up with the right word for them. They're so disappointing and surprising, and that we have that much of family violence in our area. It's just super disappointing. And that's why I'm more than ready to put on the red high heels every year and try to, help if I can. So we've had a motion, we've had a seconder. All in favor? And that's carried. I would ask the clerk, do we need to read the, not the motion, but do we need to read the declaration into the minutes? Or can we simply agree that we are going to, I mean, at some point we have to pass this, right?
So you have just passed a motion to proclaim November 25th as International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women, and you've agreed to raise the Wrapped in Courage flag.
So I don't need to read this whole motion into the agenda. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Yes, Larry.
I was just thinking, are we only going to run the flag up the pole for the 25th only, or should we run it for the full 16 days? So that there's awareness. In one day, I don't think we can get the awareness that it needs, as you've all described, the horrific situation we face in this town or county.
I agree that 1 day is probably not enough, Larry, but we do have a limitation on the number of days. I believe in our flag policy, is it 7 days, Arthur, or is it 5 days?
Through you, Mayor Kane, I believe you're correct. It's presently I'll double check a 5-day period, so it covers sort of a week. If we want to make exceptions to that, we would have to revisit that, or we also have to make arrangements to get a flag. Perhaps with Janelle, we can make those kinds of arrangements.
Then I would, Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that we have the flag run for 5 days minimum.
And that would be the week of the 25th, obviously, the Monday till Friday. So,
Yes.
Janelle, how much difficulty will it be for us to get a flag, Janelle?
So I have those flags in-house now, and I can deliver them at any time now that we have passed the motion. So I can deliver those. And we will also, on November 25th, be doing a somewhat of a media tour where we will be going to each of the municipalities that are flying the flag and taking a picture and having that in the media as well, that you are all participating in this campaign.
That's great. Thank you. Yes, Pat.
The thing that I was wondering is it also possible for MLA to put on social media just recognizing the day and saying you may note the flag is flying and this is why, with maybe a couple of facts that are in the motion. Because people driving by quickly are going to see a different flag, but they're not going to understand the meaning of it.
I see you've got Emily on board. Go ahead, Em.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kane. Yes, Councillor McCourt, that's something that we can do as part of the promotions as well. So we would push it through our Facebook page as well, letting the public know why the flag is flying, as well as we would put it on the screen out front of the municipal office as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Maybe the flag logo could be like the flag logo could be part of the Facebook post. Lost the word.
I do have all of those logos and the social media verbiage that I can send to you, Emily, so that we can correspond on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's great. So do we need a motion to that effect, or we simply say this as a direction to staff? Yes.
Through you, Mayor Kane, I think that staff has received the direction and that's fine. We don't need a motion.
Thank you for your help.
And I would accept that for the motion.
Okay, anything else before we move forward? Okay, thank you. Thanks for being with us, Janelle.
Thank you so much. It was nice to see everybody. Thank
Good luck with
you.
everything.
Thank you. Take care.
You're muted, Bill.
You're muted.
Sorry about that, guys. That brings us to 6.2, request for a letter of credit reduction in consideration of surface asphalt application for Lee's Court, Bewdley. And Neil Dennis of Neil Dennis Enterprises is with us today. Saw him on the, oh, there you are. Hi, Neil. Welcome.
Hello, how are you today, guys?
Good, thank you. The floor is yours.
Okay, it's my turn. Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Neil Dennis, president of Neil Dennis Enterprise Limited. For the one that doesn't know me, I just have just explain where I'm from and so on for a couple of minutes, if I may. I have been in the area as a contractor since 1972. That's almost 50 years. As a general excavation, house builder, land developer, and resort owner. I have employed local trades from laborers, equipment operators, engineer, realtor, electrician, surveyor, plumber, just to name a few. I dealt with local lawyers, accountant, bank planners, bonding companies, engineer, Townsend's, Acon, Dobry Engineering, and more. Electrical engineer, Hydro One, Union Gas. I had contract as a general contractor, road work, sewer, water main, underground electrical service for the town of Whitby. I rebuilt Ann Street, Front Street, Stanley Court in Whitby. I have built 65 homes, from excavation to carpentry, electrical, plumbing, and finished trim. I was licensed with MOE as general excavation, pond, septic, house excavation, wells. I own resort for 20 years in the township, Cedar Cove Resort, Hardwood Lees, Coldstream Cottages, Bewdley Cottages. I had as many as 15 people on my payroll. I'm not trying to run for a mayor. Don't get me wrong.
That'd be a big mistake.
I just want you to know that I'm not a fly by night. I've been around this area. Now, this 6-lot subdivision in Bewdley is not our first rodeo. All I am asking here for the township to compromise and help reduce the letter of credit we have with the bank for the subdivision. As of now, we still have $170,000 hold by the bank to protect the township in case we don't pay. And we've paid everyone Everything is up to date. Everything has been paid. I know we have an agreement with the township, subdivision agreement, and I respect it. The road has been constructed under the township and the engineer spec. The gas, hydro, street lights, it's all been done over a year now. I'm asking is for the township to let me complete the last coat of paving. So my 2 years warranty will kick in. I have a 2 years warranty at the end of this term. I appreciate that. I've read the contract. I respect it. But I want to kick that in. I want to get it done. Let me finish my job. I just want to do the last coat of paving. I also know that it says that 60% occupancy has to apply in the township in order to get the road paved, 60%. Now, we don't know if these people, about for speculation, if they're going to resell these lots next year. As far as I know, they all going to build. They're all going to build, but there's been delay with the COVID. There's been delay with different things, delay with the hydros. Everything is done now. So Jim Tiffy, the township engineer, and Dobry Engineering, and I had a meeting and agreed that 6 lots is not a great deal of traffic. It's not a 100 lot subdivision. It's a 6 lot subdivision. And it shouldn't be too much traffic here to damage the road in any ways. Besides, we have an agreement with all of the lot owner, the purchaser of the new lots. We have an agreement drawn by our engineer, our solicitor, our realtor, and I. And the township already have a copy of all of the lots, purchase, sale, and sign agreement. It stated that any owner that must complete or are completely responsible for any damage to the road should occur. It's costing us a fortune to keep this letter of credit open with the bank and the liability insurance. Not to mention the delay of COVID that we had throughout this project. Please, I'm only asking to compromise and try to get this letter of credit low as possible. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. Turn over for any questions from council. We have about 5 minutes for questions. Yes, Scott?
Good afternoon, Neil. Neil, how many lots are under your ownership today?
I'm sorry, Scott?
How many lots are still in your ownership today of the 6?
This subdivision is only 6 lots, 6 1 acre lot.
Yeah. How many do you own today, Neil? How many have been sold?
They all sold. They all been sold. All sold in May 1st. We all sold.
Okay, so you don't own any of the lots today?
Not in that site, no.
Thank you.
I own the road. I build the road. I'm responsible for the road.
Yeah. I'm somewhat familiar with the process, Neil.
Yes.
No other questions from council. I have one. How many builds have actually been started on the road? How many of the 6 lots have a build under construction?
There's the 6 lots is 1 single house per lot.
How many people have began construction on the lot?
How many people have started construction? They have been a delay. A lot of delays in there. Nobody start building yet. They start cutting the trees. They're getting ready for it. There was a couple lots that had complaint that they had problem to get a building permit, but it was just a delay from the township engineer not to sign off to some other stuff. But the road's all been built. Everything's been built since April. You know. So there's a bit of delay there, but they were already this fall to build, except one was going to build next year because he's retired now and wait for his wife to retire. That was number 3 lot, but all the rest of them are ready to get the building going. Now with the delay, I think they're going to be next spring before they start excavation.
And one other question. So are you paying interest on the $170,000 line of credit?
Yeah, we have a letter of credit with the bank for the full amount of this contract. which was over $400,000. They reduced it last year, but it's still $170,000 with the bank. There's no reason that should be that amount with the work we've done now. It's that the stage we at. Well, all we have to do is one coat of paving, which is $36,000 or $35,000 or $36,000 to finish the coat of paving. Everything else has been done to our part. I'm talking about the road. As far as the lot, all individual owner are responsible for their lot, of their lot reading and so on.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a question, Larry?
Yes, is it normal to finish paving before the subdivision is even started? I would think that doing the finished paving would, with all the heavy trucks and construction equipment that's going to be moving in there could be a lot of damage. And, I'm not sure, but is it normal to pave the road prior to a subdivision going in? I'm just asking the question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, you mean the question?
Scott, did you have an answer for that one? I saw your hand go up.
I might be able to help a little bit here. Larry, in a high percentage of our subdivisions throughout the county, as well as our own township, the first layer of asphalt is normally placed. Construction or development of the homes on the lots normally take place at that point in time. And as the lots become developed, then you're closer and closer to having the second layer of asphalt placed. And that, of course, is allowing an opportunity to correct the top layer of asphalt if there has been any damage to the lower layer.
So I think maybe we're a little bit ahead of ourselves. This is coming up for discussion and a motion later on in the agenda. This basically was for presentation by, to hear Mr. Dennis's side of the story, if you will. And so I think we can move forward. And this, like I said, is coming up later in the agenda. Mr. Dennis, thank you for being with us today. So that brings us to section 7, public hearings and meetings. We don't have any, or section 8. We're at part 9, the adoption of the previous council minutes and the committee of the whole minutes. We only have a regular council from 21 September 2020. It's recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton enacts as follows: that the minutes of the September 21st, 2021 regular council meeting be adopted. All in favor? And I see all the hands now. Thank you.
Did we actually get a mover and a second documented to that motion?
Yeah, we did. We have Larry and Mark, and it was moved. I'm going to go to one method of muting here instead of clicking off on. When I hold my space key, I can momentarily unmute, but I get mixed up between the two of them. So I'm just going to go back to the button business. Sorry about that. So the motion was carried. Is there any business arising from that council meeting? I see all head shakes. So we can move on to committee reports. That would be 11.1, the Ad Hoc Water Advisory Committee. It's recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton acts as follows: the minutes of the Ad Hoc Water Advisory Committee meeting held on September 16th, 2021 be received for information. I need a motion, please. Thanks, Scott. Seconded by Pat. All in favor? Those minutes are accepted. I'll ask if there's anything coming out of that meeting that needs to be discussed. Yes, Larry?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. There was that one item on that was recommended by the committee was, I believe they called electric vehicles, pickup trucks, either electric or liquid fuel or hydrogen. I think it was that. I'm wondering if staff has looked into the cost factor on those items.
I'm completely unaware, so I'm gonna have to turn over to senior staff. I don't see Anita's not with us today.
Through you, Mayor Kane, response to Councillor Williamson. Oh, there's Emily. I'll let you go from there.
Actually, it's sorry, through you, Mayor Kane. It's probably what CEO Anderson was going to say, but Councillor Williamson, the EV equivalents, those were, I think, in the Environment Committee
Oh, right.
minutes. So
Yes,
we might be one item ahead, I think.
yes, I understand that, but I'm just wondering if, as we move forward, that each of the departments start looking at those kinds of situations.
The water committee, the water department, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, I see.
that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah. How many vehicles do we actually have in the water department? Is it one?
One.
One. So, yes, Pat?
Just to clarify, this ad hoc water committee is mostly in response to trying to figure out new rates, is it not? Not that didn't look at the vehicle, but just, I wouldn't really expect that to be in their meeting minutes or in their part of their meeting anyway.
I think they're looking at everything and anything they can look at, Pat, to try and save money down the road. Okay, so I'm gonna take a stab here, Larry, and say they probably have not considered in the water department moving to electric vehicles, particularly since they've got a slightly used retired ambulance from the county that they're using for as their vehicle right now. So I think we saved about as much money on that purchase as we could. So, but that's not to say that somewhere down the line, the whole municipality is not going to go electric at some point. So if there's nothing else, I'll move to 11.2. That is the Environment Climate Change Advisory Committee. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton enacts as follows, that the minutes of the Environment and Climate Change Advisory Committee meeting held on September 27th, 2021 be received for information. Thanks, Mark. Seconded by Larry. All in favor? And that's also carried. Open that up for any discussion. Yes, Pat?
I was just going to say that what we are actually hoping is that vehicles in all areas will start to get quoted for other than our usual terms, to see if we can eventually get to the point where it's cost effective to go to another form of power.
Yes, Larry.
I just realized my screen, I moved it to the wrong spot, so I was in the wrong category when I spoke about that. So my question was actually more in line with the Environment Committee, so I apologize to everyone. But that was to further acknowledge Pat's question or reply. That's what I was actually talking about. So again, I apologize.
It's not a problem. Yes, Arthur.
If I can, through you, Mayor Kane, to Councillor Williamson, his remarks, and I know that Councillor McCord and Councillor Lovshin sit on the Environment Committee. I did manage to attend a recent meeting and updated that committee that we are at least looking at the EV chargers that were proposed some time ago with the new programs and the change programs and change the federal government. We're going to be looking at a new program or any programs that were rolled out to assist us in what we were planning on doing. And at the same time, so that's the infrastructure support, as at the same time, we will be looking at, are there vehicles or are there services that we could provide using electric vehicles as a possible cost saving, environment improvement options. And we would bring those back to the committee and to council.
Okay, thanks, Arthur. Yes, Mark.
I was just going to say, we did discuss this at great lengths in our committee, and we do realize that it's not something that may be instant. It may be something that may be years from now, that before some of these purchases would take place. But we wanted to put it in our minutes so that staff would be at least investigating it throughout. And hopefully at some point we will be able to take advantage of electric vehicles and so forth.
Okay, thank you. I see we do have Anita with us this morning. Hi, Anita. I'm sorry, I didn't think you were here. You have a hand up.
And mute.
The mute is off, but I'm not hearing you, Anita.
Good to go.
So I guess we're into our dreaded technical difficulties at this point.
Perhaps Murricane, Anita could follow up with you offline after the meeting and we could proceed just given the time considerations related to our closed session.
Yeah, and if she does get her problems worked out, we can plug her in an appropriate moment. So yes, Mark.
We did have a couple other well, at least one more recommendation from the group dealing with climate change and so forth. And that was having staff, perhaps we look at having staff work from home or still not necessarily come to the office on a full-time basis if it's not required or not needed. So at least look at it and see whether it's feasible. So that was one of the other recommendations that did come forward from our group. Maybe we would recommend this go to not only staff for a comment on it, but also maybe if favorable, maybe go to budget also. See if there's any savings.
Probably needs to go to corporate services at committee level as well.
Sure.
Through you, Mayor Kane, response to Councillor Lufsen's comments, we can look at that right now. We presently still have a sort of staggered arrangement where possible, but obviously we'll bring that back more formally to council, to committee and to council in the future.
Okay, so moving to part 14 of the agenda, which is corporate services. 14.1 is PNG-15-2021, a consent merger agreement. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The Council receives report PNG 15-2021, the consent merger agreement, which is a severance agreement for information, and that the mayor and clerk be directed to sign the consent merger agreement and return to the applicant, Scott and Lois Ann Milson, for registration on title and fulfillment of a condition of consent. If we could get a motion to get this on the floor, then we'll see if there's any staff input or questions. Thank you, Scott, seconded by Pat. So do we need any kind of staff report on this? Or something we're all familiar with through the Committee of Adjustment. So if not, I'll ask if any of the members of council have questions pertaining. Okay, if not, I'll just call the question. Then all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 14.2 BLDG 2021-06, the 2021 Building Department stats for quarter 3. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. Council receives report BLDG 2021-06, the 2021 Building Department statistics for quarter 3 for information only. Again, if we can get a motion to move this on the floor, we'll see if there's any discussion. Thanks, Mark. Seconded by Larry. Do we need or could we have input from staff? I see Tim is with us.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Tim. Welcome.
Hey, I'm just here if there's any questions from any members of council, happy to answer them. Just driving on the road doing some inspections. So.
Okay, Pat's got a hand up.
I was just curious as to with such an increase in both the numbers and the project value, whether it's been a struggle for you and Mike to keep up, and is this something that you think is going to continue like into the next year?
Excellent question. Project values, I think people are building kind of more complex buildings. So on that end, I would imagine it continues to stay at this level and maybe go up maybe a little bit, but not too much. And then as far as volume of work, thankfully, Mike has been doing an amazing job keeping everything together with respect to permit review and permit issuance. I know it's been a little challenging at times just being in the office or not in the office, but no, he takes a lot of pride in his quick turnaround. So I think we're moving forward quite well on that one. And we are investigating a more efficient platform with respect to permit submissions. So that will be something that we'll probably be bringing forward in 2022, just to save a little bit more time on our review end and still provide a great level of service.
Okay, and if I may, one more question, Tim. Just in your own personal belief, do you think this is largely created by the backlog of people not being able to get what they wanted done in 2020? So do you think it's eventually going to slow down again, or do you think this is actually going to continue for a while like this?
With all honesty, I think it's going to continue. I don't feel, or I never heard a lot from residents on holdback with respect to issuance of permit. It was more materials that they could get, which we don't normally see the change on the permit or inspection end. And people are creative. They just start changing materials based on what's available to them. You see that with ICF construction instead of wood frame, or changing floor designs from engineered products to standard lumber, or whatever's available to them. So I think it's going to continue with large volumes moving forward for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Larry?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Tim, if I could ask the question, where is most of the new homes being built? What, are they in the rural areas? Are they near the, the towns of Baltimore, or where are they?
Sure. So we're seeing a number of them in the Deerfield subdivision. We also had Archibald. So a couple of the Baltimore areas, but with the lot sales and prices associated to that, people are building on all those vacant lots that nobody would have thought you'd kind of entertain for the times that we're in. But yeah, it's kind of scattered outside of the Baltimore subdivision areas.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I see no other questions. Thanks, Tim. Call
Hey,
the
my
question
pleasure.
then. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Thank you. 14.3, HR 2021-01, the Township of Hamilton COVID-19 vaccination policy. Do you want to address this, Arthur, before we get the motion on the floor for presentation, or do you want me to get the motion up first?
Through you, Mayor Kane, I'm happy to get the motion up. We distributed the policy and obviously very willing to cover all components of it. We as a senior team looked at this policy, worked closely with Colleen McBride, our manager of HR, all together to try and bring forward what we feel is the best sort of advice at this point. But obviously we want to hear council's comments and have a discussion today. So thank you for that.
Okay, great. So it's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council receives report HR 2021-01, the COVID-19 vaccination policy for information purposes. And the council approve the policy requiring all township employees, volunteers, students, consultants, contractors, and council to disclose and provide proof of vaccination status subject to any human rights or medical exemptions by timelines as outlined in the policy. Thanks, Larry, a seconder. Thanks, Scott. And now discussion. Any members of council? Yes, Pat. You got my disease, Pat, you're muted.
Okay, well, that worked well because I said it wrong the first time, so I'm happy. Am I right in assuming that as regulations change, this will just get updated and adjusted regularly? I know they keep bringing out new versions of what we can and cannot do.
Yes, that is the intent. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, to bring
Thank
it
you.
forward.
I saw Mark's hand as well.
Yeah, just a quick question, and I'm fine with the policies dealing with staff and council and so forth, but I didn't see anything within the policies that dealt with anyone that was coming in the office that would be visiting, not just coming to perhaps council meetings if we do open up again, but you know, visiting people like Tim and so forth that require one-on-one conversations. So do we have anything in there for them that they would require two vaccinations and that type of thing, or is that a separate policy altogether?
It's included in here for, I'm just looking for students, contractors, consultants, that they have to have up-to-date immunization too. Vaccination, I'm just looking for where it.
We're worried about a ratepayer coming in that would that wasn't included in that group. So it'd be someone that would be coming to a council meeting, for instance, or coming to visit a staff person for one-on-one conversations.
I think that's a good catch, Mark. I think it needs to be added. I'm with you on that. Larry?
Under the government policy, would that not follow under, for instance, shopping malls and smaller centers? I mean, you're not talking about people who are coming in and crowding in an area. So it may be covered off under the policy of the government with regards to the vaccination, proof of vaccination. Because if you go shopping, you don't have to provide proof to enter the store. You just have to use the proper masking and keeping your distance. I would assume that would be the way, but maybe staff can maybe check that out.
So through you, Mayor Kane, just on to that end, we presently have processes in place, not included in this policy because there, as Colleen was mentioning, there are provisions related to students, contractors, and consultants perhaps entering our building or working. We do have policies for the public coming in, which cover maintaining the safe distances, washing of hands, masks, a limited number of people in the building at any one time, logging into our book for contact tracing. So we have a number of sort of standard ones that you would expect in sort of a commercial kind of operation. And we'll be looking at now with the extended use of the vaccine passport, whether that's one that would apply to our building as a place of work or a business as well. In the various facilities, they have those, they're working in conjunction with, again, the senior team and through Trevor Clapperton and the management of those facilities, they have the policies in place where they work with the teams, the user groups, as well as people arriving and how they're treated as well with masks, logging in and similar kind of protective elements. So this policy was more focused to the staff, the vaccination process, but we do have some procedures or information we can bring back to council on dealing with people arriving in our building and the service they will be receiving.
Pat?
Just to add a little bit to that, the libraries are not able to ask for proof of vaccination. That's one of the things that we just in the past months have reviewed, but the legislation also keeps getting updated, like constantly, it seems, as to say who can and who cannot ask. I'm pretty confident with all the research I've been doing for other jobs that right now we can't ask the public to show proof of vaccine except for in the recreation facilities when they're engaging in sports, I think is how it's worded. There's one specific thing I think where we can go after the proof of vaccine, but I could be wrong on that. Pretty sure I'm right though.
Well, the way to find out is to have staff actually check it out and see where we stand. I think, I don't know how the rest of the members of council feel, but even Colleen's done a great job of putting this together. That may be just one thing you could check out for us, please, and see if we are able to add that to the policy. because what we're talking about is the safety of we're still talking about the safety of our staff. And people are going to come in and sit down across the desk from our clerk and from our planning coordinator and from our building official and various other people in the building. And I mean, we owe them the protection. All this talk about the rights of the unvaccinated. I want the rights of the vaccinated to be protected here. So perhaps we could, can we check that out, Colleen, and see if that could be something we could add to the policy?
For sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, seniors.
If I can also, just while we're discussing it, because we can certainly pursue it further, Mayor Kane and Council. I know that Trevor's also here, and Trevor also is part of the team that's looking at this and has some pretty good sort of hands-on experience in dealing with facilities. So if I could also ask Trevor to provide a comment at this point as well.
Okay. So have we covered that off now to everyone's satisfaction? All right. Anything else in the policy from other members of council? I have a couple things myself. I seem to have a fairly good recollection of the discussion about the timing of rapid COVID testing for the unvaccinated. And I was fairly sure that we had discussed having this happen twice a week. And this policy is written says once weekly. Now, I've got my doubts that that's frequent enough. I was thinking we would maybe go Monday, Thursdays or something. Is there a reason why we dropped back to once per week?
Yes, I guess in our surveying of looking at what other municipalities have done, and the senior management team did review quite a number of them, and in talking to them, once a week will allow someone to possibly go on a weekend when they aren't working versus the Monday and Thursday, which some of them have, and then trying to get the testing before they would arrive for work at possibly 6:30 in the morning. So to facilitate that, it was once per week. To be determined by our municipality and when that was. But certainly in surveying them, there was either two, Mondays and Thursdays, or once a week to be determined by the municipality. And so we picked the once per week, but certainly council can decide it twice per week.
Any input from any members? Scott?
First of all, I support the intent of what Councillor Lovshin brought up a few moments ago. However, I don't think this is the policy that it gets introduced into. I think it's a separate document. In respect to once a week, in the case of our roads department, that simply work Monday through Thursday. If we pick those 2 days, for example, they'd be doing it on Thursday. At some point in time, possibly even after they left work, and doing it again Monday morning before they got back to work. So I can see some difficulties as a result of work schedules, and therefore then I'm comfortable with once a week.
So we're worried about accommodating the unvaccinated, basically what you're telling me, Scott.
I'm sorry, Bill, I couldn't hear that.
So we're concerned about accommodating the unvaccinated people, so that this is difficult for them.
No, it's not a matter of accommodation. It's a matter of being practical. It's our workplace rule. And if we're having them checked on Thursday and they're away Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and not back to work on Monday, I can't see the benefit of that second test on Thursday to any great extent.
Anyone else? Okay, there was one other phrase that, so if there is no test, I believe the phrase said that meant no work. You weren't allowed on the job site. Does that also mean no pay? Or do they take a sick day, or what do they do? An unvaccinated person shows up on Monday without the test. They're not allowed on the workplace.
That's correct, yes. So it would be an unpaid, I would think an unpaid. I suppose it could be a vacation day that they take until such time as or use bank time until such time as they provide proof. Yeah.
Or until they run out of bank time, or they run out of sick leave.
Yeah, then they'd be placed on an unpaid leave.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Larry?
Do we know how many people are not vaccinated within the township staff? Is there a lot of
yeah.
them, or is there a particular reason then?
So yes, we have the disclosures for all of our staff, but 1 and 5 to 7 are either are undisclosed or unvaccinated.
And is this by choice, or is this by inappropriate time that they can get the vaccination?
I
For
don't
medical,
know.
is it
Yeah,
medical? It's for medical or religious reasons?
so they filled out the disclosure, and one of the options, I choose to maintain my privacy and not disclose. So that was one of the options, and there were 7 or 8 options to select from.
So we're not reimbursing them for the test through their through whatever contracts we have. I know in some companies that I think it costs $42 to get a test at, for instance, a pharmacy. I believe it's $42.
Right, and so this policy coming forward, and again, in review of all the other policies that we reviewed, some municipalities have said they won't pay. Some have said they'll provide rapid tests. Some said you can't use a rapid test and must go to a pharmacy to have a test. So again, all over the map, we have said that we won't. What did we say in our policy? Just a minute. That we will, if they need testing and they have a medical exemption, that we will provide the test kits to them, or pay for it if we don't have the test kits, if there's a medical exemption. And for other ones, we, I think we ended on that we would just let me.
Them to pay for it.
Yeah, them to pay for it.
So where you have one, excuse me, through Mayor Kane, response to the question, if you have an exemption, if there's a medical reason, we're willing to compensate or to subsidize the cost of that up to $50. But if you were choosing not to, we were basically saying that's your choice, but that's one that you would have to pay for the test yourself. If you're able to claim it through some other mechanism outside of the township, you have that, they would have that option as well.
Okay, thank you.
Pat,
So my question's about practicality.
Mhm.
If they're not doing the rapid test on site, and if at the end of the rapid test, all you have is the little plastic thing that looks like a pregnancy kit that has a little pink line that says you don't have COVID, are they supposed to be bringing that little plastic thing in for you to know that they proved negative, or is it an honor system? And does the township fall under the category of businesses that can get the rapid tests for free? And if it does, and they take less than a minute to do, why aren't we having them done where there can be oversight that's a right answer or an honest answer?
Okay, so the policy does say proof should be provided via email with a photo. So they do it on their own time. They take a photo of their test results and they email it to HR. We do have test kits here that we received that were free, that we could certainly train people to do the rapid tests at home. We certainly at the senior management team had discussions about facilitating, so bringing somebody who's unvaccinated in here to watch me oversee them do a test was probably not in the best interest of anyone. So yeah, we do have the test kits, and we certainly could provide them if that's what council chooses.
I don't think council should be providing them if we are paying for them.
Yeah,
But
they were
if we have
free.
the ability to get them, while we have the ability to get them for free, I'm not sure that it makes sense to say you have to go out and buy your own. I really question how easy it is to do one once and get a negative and just send the same picture over and over again. But you know, I'm a cynic.
they might not even done the test on themselves in the first place, Pat.
where I work, they do it on site. They do it themselves after they've been trained on how to do it. And then after it's negative, then they show somebody so that there's a second person who's seen it. Like, so that they're doing the first part unapproved, like unsupervised, but we know it's the right day's test that we're looking at.
What I'm saying, there's nothing to stop a family member from taking the test for you. Scott.
I'd like to rethink my previous comments after hearing the discussion. And I'm going to go to an extreme here. Do we have a legal right that we can just simply say, be vaccinated or don't come to work?
Oh, through you, Mayor Kane. This isn't obviously the easiest issue to wrestle to the ground. We've been able to look at a variety of sources, a variety of policies and initiatives, and we've seen at the federal government requiring all their employees to be vaccinated. We've also seen them requiring that of people to be vaccinated if they're to use airplanes, trains, and transit across the country. And we've also seen some other local governments, as recently as today, the city of Vancouver, for example, requiring all their employees to be vaccinated. We've seen that over the last several weeks here in Toronto and other municipalities as well. So we have definitely been trying to track the best information or the development evolving of the policy. And we're bringing this forward today to you. If you ask some members of the legal community, are you able to do this? You would get an opinion, yes. And I'm sure we would also be able to find opinions saying, challenging that perspective. However, we feel as an employer, we're able to set the standards and require that of our employees to provide safety to them and to their colleagues and to people that will be interfacing with in the future. We developed this so we have a test requirement. We have a period where there could be education. There's a further requirement for ongoing testing, and then we put a deadline date. All of these are ones where we feel confident that we're following the regulations and we're looking also to what other governments are doing. So I hope that answers your question as far as our legal basis and what's happening in the environment in general.
Go ahead, Scott.
I'll just sort of follow up on my own thoughts and what Arthur shared with us. I'm not willing to be happy with any amount of tests if the township are paying for them. If we're not sure that the test is for the person who's working for us, it's been mentioned in sort of a secondhand sort of way that it could be a family member. Well, that's very real. I'm not willing to be happy with any of that. So I'm leaning towards a harsher program than even what we have in front of us, which I thought was pretty good when I first read it and went to it. But when we look at these other items of fake tests and incomplete tests and somebody else's test being handed in, that's not where we should be.
Through your making, Deputy Mayor Jeb, I guess all things you just mentioned are possibilities, but we don't know how they're happening. We're trying to set up a structure that we feel is as safe and as practical, one that can be managed. And again, the people are aware of, and that's why we published it online and tried to make everyone aware. We're trying to establish that, again, a sort of overall corporate level of trust, both with management while we're doing this, employees knowing that they can trust one another, and giving that confidence to council and to the public. I do want to say we have had some feedback from employees or volunteers concerned about the January 1st deadline. And we're trying to understand what the nature of that concern is. So I just want to make sure that I guess that's a reflection that we've got a policy. We're trying to make it the very best, reflecting about what we've seen elsewhere. We've got a deadline in, some other areas do not, but we know that some municipalities do have these deadlines in place. And we're also trying to make sure we understand council staff what the concerns may be. And I think in the policy, we said we will continue to monitor it, bring it back to council with updates if that fine tuning or if that revision process is something that we think would help benefit again, the township.
So for clarity, the January deadline says they will be vaccinated?
Yes, or placed on unpaid leave.
Right. So this
Yeah.
this testing is actually an interim policy, really. It's only going to go on for the next 10 weeks.
It will go
And-
on for the month of December.
Right.
Yeah,
October, November, December. So that's the
so
next
they
10 approximately 10 weeks.
So they have until October the 29th to provide proof and disclose, so October 29th.
Right.
And then if they are not fully vaccinated, or I don't have the proof, by November the 29th or 30th, the dates kind of moved around a little bit,
Right.
then they'll be subject to testing. The reason for those was October the 29th was the deadline. If they decide to get immunized that date or vaccinated, that gives them the 21 to 28 days they need to be fully vaccinated. Yeah, so that gives that window in there. Subject to that, January 1st, they will have had the education piece as well in that part. We're
And
hoping
we'll
that
no
anybody,
longer, we'll no
Yeah.
longer be accepting testing after the new year.
as of January 1st, the way the draft policy stands right now, if you approve it,
Right.
come January 1st, if we don't have proof, then any staff who aren't compliant will be placed on an unpaid leave.
So that gets to where you want to go, Scott, by January. Okay. All right. Yes, Larry.
But that's still, we still have that 5.3, which is accommodation in accordance with the Human Rights Code. That would still apply.
Yes.
So we have, you said 5 to 7 employees who are in that category or who haven't been vaccinated.
If I can clarify, we have the 5 to 7 people who have either declared or they do not want to say or declare that they are not vaccinated. We do not know the justification for that, so we will be going through that process to understand if they in fact enjoy an exemption or if there's some other extraneous criteria. But we have that written into the policy. During November, we will be getting verification of either proof of vaccination or declaration that they may comply with or may have an exemption. And then that's when we're going through this again, this education process, testing, and then putting a deadline in place to bring it to some conclusion as of January 1.
Thank you.
Pat. Got my disease again, Pat.
Larry, you might be interested that the Human Rights Commission actually has a whole write-up now of they've been looking into whether just the belief that you shouldn't have the vaccine isn't in the circumstance of a pandemic isn't a reason to use the Human Rights Code as a reason not to get it. It sounds like they're largely saying that it's got to be a medical exemption unless it's unusual circumstance.
That's right.
Okay, thanks. That was a robust discussion. If there's nothing further and we're satisfied with the policy then that's written, we have it moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor? And it is opposed. 1.
2, Scott's hand went up as well.
No,
Sorry.
I didn't think I got counted for
Yeah, it was.
in favor.
So
I'm
the
in favor.
motion was passed 4-1. That brings us to 14.4. That's the emissions efficiency funded project status update. We'll get this on the floor. It's recommended the Council Corporation Township Hamilton acts as follows. The council receives report T 2021-30. Efficiency funded project status update for information. Need a mover to get it up there, please. Thanks, Larry. Seconded by Scott. Open for discussion. Any input from staff? Nazrat?
To you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing much to add. As you all know, we received around $617,000 from the province for efficiency fund, and that was in 2019. And the entire fund has been allocated to various projects, and we wanted to give a status update on the projects. Some of the projects were completed in 2020, some will be in 2021, and all of the projects will be completed by 2022. If there is any question, we'd be happy to answer.
Larry?
A couple of questions, if I could, through you, Mr. Mayor. The fire master plan is an example. We budgeted 95,000. The actual fee came in at 57.5. So we're not going to be using any development charge on that study.
To you, Mr. Mayor. So the budget for Fire Master Plan was $95,000. As per the budget that was approved, 57,500 would have been funded from efficiency fund, but the cost or the quote that came in was lower than that. So we're going to be allocating a portion from DC and a portion from efficiency fund based on the budget approval allocation.
So no funds could be put into reserve then? Is that what you're saying, the difference? Looking to see where we get.
This project was not funded from reserve. It was DC and efficiency fund. And if there is savings in efficiency fund, we will bring back a report at the end of the year where we will ask council to allocate it to additional projects.
So when you go through this, and I could be wrong on this, but I see that the difference between what we budgeted and what we actually allocated for approval was 138,000. Is that correct? The difference, 138,000 between what we budgeted to what we actually are going to be spending.
There is a difference between budget and what we are going to be, I mean, there is a difference between budget column and efficiency fund column because certain projects are partially funded from other sources. So for example, Fire Master Plan, Park Master Plan, and Stormwater Drainage Plan, these are partially funded from DC. So you really can compare these two lines in terms of 100% budget and efficiency.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Arthur.
If I can, through you, Mayor Kane, I just want to reiterate the point that Treasurer Nasrat has mentioned, which is as we work through these projects, if we find efficiencies, whether it's a proportionate amount back to DC or money back to the efficiency, we'll be coming with an update to council and asking for approval for either allocation to other projects or otherwise. So we're trying our very best to make sure the projects are run as efficiently as possible and that money would be brought back and be able to apply under the program criteria.
Anything else on efficiency? Yes, Pat.
I just wanted to confirm, first of all, that the efficiency fund, we don't have to worry about having projects completed by a specific time or we lose part of the money. I think that's how that works, that we're okay, once we've got it, we've got the money. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. I just have to inform the municipal, our municipal advisor in terms of the status of the projects. But other than that, there is no deadline.
Perfect. And just help me remember the community engagement enhancement, the last one listed, that was bang the table?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, and that was the total cost of what we were spending to the end of this year?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
Anything else on efficiency? Okay, let's quickly, before we take the vote on that, I want to give a shout out to our fire department because the original RFPs that were put out came in at much higher number than this, something above $90,000. And because our fire department communicates with other neighboring departments, found out that the very similar RFPs were being brought back at a price much similar to the one we now enjoy. So, you know, by our guys being on the ball there, we saved over $40,000. So anytime you see it, you can let them know that we appreciate what they've done. So I will call the question then. All in favor of the motion? And that one is carried unanimously. Thank you. 14.5, CD 2021-19. This is the request for letter of credit reduction. Neil Dennis Enterprises. Read the recommended motion. It's recommended the council incorporates the township of Halifax as follows. The council authorized the reduction of the letters of credit for the Neil Dennis Enterprises Limited Subdivision in Bewdley, 14T-91011, Northumberland County file number D12-91011. The location is part of lot 35, concession 8, Hamilton, north of Lake Street, east of Boundary Road, for a 6-lot development on plan 39M934 to amount no less than $111,294.70, be retained as recommended by Jim Teefy, project engineer from ACOM Canada Architects, and that all outstanding accounts for the township are paid in full, and that a statutory declaration from the owner covering all contractors, subcontractors, labor, material, equipment indicating they have all been paid be provided prior to the release of the letter of credit. And further, the council will provide direction to permit final surface asphalt application in advance of any building or occupancy permits being issued within the Neil Dennis subdivision. Can we get this motion on the floor? Thank you, Pat. Seconder, Larry, and now discussion. Yes, Pat.
I've got comments and questions.
Go.
I was a little bit surprised when it said about getting the final surface of asphalt application, simply because having any repairs done by 6 individual owners was a little scary for me. So that concerns me a bit. But if I understood Mr. Dennis correctly, part of the reason, or the largest part of the reason he wants to do that, is so that he can start the maintenance portion of the 2 years. If that's correct, do we have any leeway on whether that needs to actually be a 2-year time period, or can it be shortened since there's less possibility of damage to the road further down the line because there's actually less people using the road than in a larger subdivision? That was a mouthful.
And before that's answered, Pat, I'd like to add to your question. When do we assume that road? When is it our baby? Is that in 2 years then? Is that what happens?
Through you, Mr. Kane. My understanding is that the earliest that assumption could take place would be within the 2 years. So Mr. Dennis, and I appreciate his attendance today. It was nice to see him, and I do feel for him and understand where he's coming from. However, we have a subdivision agreement that is in place for this development, but is very consistent to the developments that we have throughout the township. So I would just like to add that the assumption could take place earliest as 60% of occupancy. So we have our chief building official. We also have our deputy mayor who are available, I'm sure, to answer any questions related specifically to the building permit and the occupancy process. I would just like to say that to support Mr. Dennis, we have made the recommendation to council today to make a significant decrease in his letter of credit. So Mr. Dennis's original request was only for the municipality to retain $36,000 in securities. So I understand from our township engineer that would not be significant enough to ensure the building of the wells and the damage that might be taking place during the building. So that's why we have brought forward the recommendation today related to the letter of credit, but we are seeking your direction related to the final course of asphalt.
Okay, thank you. So let's break this down then. Can we discuss Pat's concern about the paving? I share that concern. I mean, no houses have been built. We're going to have the road completely paved and then wind up assuming it when there might only be, if the 2 years go by, there might only be 1 or 2 houses constructed. which
So
point
Mayor
we're
Kane,
gonna-
that is precisely the concern that has been identified. Mr. Dennis has entered into separate legal agreements with each individual property owner. However, there has been no amendment to the subdivision agreement. So Mr. Dennis and his corporation is still in an agreement with the township before assumption could take place. The concern would be that the final course of asphalt is placed prior to building, and then there would be various civil matters taking place between Mr. Dennis and individual property owners, while those that have built in good faith and during the maintenance period, it would prevent the assumption of the subdivision by the municipality.
And if we were to assume it too early and then construction occurred, the agreement between Mr. Dennis and the landowner is not going to help us. We're going to be in a mess.
I'm confident in our engineer and our building department that in fact we likely would not be making a recommendation for assumption as a mistake or too early. But we could make a mistake if we prematurely were to release the funds for securities in the letter of credit.
Larry, Mark, Scott.
Thank you, Bill. Interestingly enough, we have a very unique situation where the developer no longer has any ownership of the lots. And that is something that I don't think has ever happened in the last 40 years of Hamilton Township. Historically, the developer of the property will also enter into an agreement with the builder, and construction starts on numerous lots, and things fall in place with percentages and occupancies and different things like that. Our chief building official mentioned Archibald Court here earlier in response to a question from council, and that's more of a normal process. Mr. Dennis, maybe through agreement, has legal responsibilities to and from the individual property owners, but we also have an opportunity to look at increased entrance deposits and fees for individual builders. And we might be looking at that in the future as well as reducing this letter of credit in the future. I recognize Mr. Teefe's report. I understand and I agree with it. But as we move forward and we don't see any development in the subdivision, we may be looking at other alternatives to accommodate Mr. Dennis.
Deputy Mayor Jib, I can confirm, and Tim is on the line as well, that there have been a number of inquiries, and we're confident that there will be some building occurring. It's just at this time, this request is premature because there simply has been no construction and no building permits issued at this time.
Thank you. Do we have any indications of builds this year or next year?
I can't confirm that. Tim, are you available to jump on or no?
Sorry about that. There has yet to be any building permit applications submitted to the municipality. So as far as this year build, I seeing how one of the requirements under the subdivision agreement is the installation and review of a well or a well report. I would guess that we'll start to see construction in the spring of 2022. We don't have any application in at this moment for that subdivision.
While you're there, Tim, can we get your opinion on having the road surfacing completed prior to any construction?
Oh, it's a tough one for me, Mayor Kane, because I think from a staff perspective, it's difficult to deal with individual property owners, especially when we have a contract with an engineer that doesn't work in our office. So going back and forth, and I know we've had challenges on other subdivisions, it can be quite difficult dealing with a number of different people, and that's why we like to have the agreement with the developer. it's harder to go back on a number of individuals with respect to damages and who's responsible for the damage. That's yeah, my opinion. Personally, I would prefer to deal with a developer rather than individual lot owners and some hearsay associated to it.
Thank you, Tim. So hearing from some members of council and some members of staff, I'm not hearing any support for the last part of this motion, which would be to allow the permanent second layer of asphalt to be applied. So I'm going to go back to the mover and seconders. I'm not sure who that is, but would you consider taking that part of the motion?
I was
off
the
the table?
mover. I don't have a problem with taking that part of the motion out. That was kind of where I thought we were going to end up. I'd like clarification for one thing that Daphne said, because I wasn't sure that I got it correctly. Were you saying that the maintenance agreement, the earliest the maintenance agreement could start would be what 60% of development had happened on the street?
The trigger for the maintenance agreement, the maintenance guarantee period, is the final course of asphalt. So my understanding from Mr. Dennis is that he's really looking to move forward. He's done a great job throughout our township. He's been a successful developer. We're certainly grateful for the work and the investment that he's made to our township. It's just simply that we have an agreement that has various provisions and he needs to meet them in order to move on. So in order to do that, one trigger is reaching 60% of occupancy. And so far we won't be able to do that. Or he can come to council and he can seek approval to lay the final course of asphalt, which would then trigger that 2-year period. And then following that, a certificate of completion can be issued and then final assumption. So the subdivision agreement sets out these various steps that need to take place. And we're simply asking council to confirm that he continue that course.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, just with regard to the motion, if your wish is to refuse it, we would simply amend that last clause to refuse the approval. And we could even qualify by adding at this time.
Sorry, so you're saying we can vote on the motion as it stands and defeat it and then have it removed?
No, well, I'll help you work through that procedure. We have a mover and a seconder for the entire motion. We can amend that. We can do it 2 ways. You could vote on the first 3 clauses, which are related to the first 2 clauses, which are related to the letter of credit, and you could approve that. And then we could vote on the last clause separately.
Okay, thank you. So Pat, you declared yourself as the mover. Are you happy with that we vote on this section by section?
Sure, I'm fine with that.
And the seconder was? Larry, are you in agreement, Larry, to vote on this section by section?
Yes, that's fine.
So I'll move approval of the reduction in the letter of credit as suggested by the township staff at the $59,000, I think.
Yeah, so we already have that motion, Pat. So we've got a motion on the floor. So I'm going to just simply divide it up as we vote. So I'd like to vote on that first section you're talking about, which is reduction of the line of credit to 111,294.70. Any discussion further on that part? All in favor? And that is carried. And then the second part is that all outstanding accounts for the township are paid in full to all and any involvement in this development to this point.
Mayor
Any
Kane,
further
if I may ask,
Yes.
that second clause is actually related to the letter of credit. It's related, it's just a statutory declaration.
so
So
they
my
go together.
understanding, that's right. My understanding was the first and second clause would be voted on and it was
Okay.
moved and seconded.
Okay,
And then we're seeking direction for that third clause.
so we've incorporated that section already into the first vote. Okay. So we're just clear to go on to the third section then?
That's right. We're
Yeah,
seeking
yeah.
direction.
Okay,
so-
so this is the part that talks about allowing the final surface asphalt application to be applied. And I think instead of taking it off table, we're simply going to vote whether we accept it or not. So I'll call the question, all in favor?
May I have a mover and a seconder? I have a mover and a seconder I have Pat and
Okay,
Larry.
I thought the one motion covered the whole thing. Sorry.
We
So we
can-
had Larry move and Scott second this time. Okay. And so all in favor of the motion?
We have a discussion right there for a second, Bill.
Sure you can.
I guess my question is going to Daphne. Daphne, with the reduction of line of credit to 111, did it assume that the second layer of asphalt was already in place?
No, Deputy Mayor, the recommendation from the township engineer was not to permit that at this time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarity.
Okay, so go ahead, Larry.
So Daphne, can you clarify? Originally, he said that we authorized a reduction of 170,000. Is the $36,000 reduction, is that for the asphalt?
So in original letter of credit was approximately $395,000. In December, Kate Serreris came and council reduced the letter of credit further to 170,000. So currently the township retains 170,000. The township engineer has requested a further, or has approved a further reduction to 111, simply to for the asphalt, so any damage related to the road surface as well as the well installation.
So the $36,000 is for the asphalt? No?
So
He said
we
that that's
would
what, he said he said the asphalt was going to cost 36,000.
So that 111 that the township will be retaining will cover the damage to the roadway as well as well installation. So I don't think that there is an agreement necessarily between the township engineer and Dobrier Engineering related to the amount of asphalt that we would need, like the amount of money we would need to retain for asphalt. So the suggested amount of guarantee was $36,000. I think that the township engineer was suggesting that, well, that was perhaps really low.
Okay, great, thank you.
The reduction from 170 to 111 doesn't make 36,000. So.
No, that's the 59,000. That's for the work that's been completed on the interim.
Correct. All right, so I think we're just about to call for the vote. All in favor? I have one opposed.
Can I be, what are we voting on, Bill? Just so we know, I'm not 100% sure what the motion says.
Sorry, Mark.
I'm sorry.
So the motion that's on the floor is that we will allow the second layer of asphalt to be applied. So if you agree with this motion, then you're saying go ahead and put the second layer on before any construction. If you vote against this motion, you're saying, no, I don't want the second layer of asphalt.
Thank you, Bill. Yep, thank you.
Sorry. So with that clarification, I'll call the vote again, please. Then all in favor of the motion? And everyone opposed to the motion? And we now have a 5-0. Okay, thank you. I'm glad, Mark, I'm glad you asked that. Right, I'm looking at my clock and I've got 2:28. Now, we're certainly not going to make it to the end of corporate in 2 minutes. So I'm suggesting, as requested previously, that we find a section here where I can get us into closed. We need a motion to go to a closed session to discuss matters permitted under section 239, subsection 3.1, education. Will be Watson and Associates development charges. It's recommended the council, the corporation, the township of Hamilton acts as follows: that regular council meeting held on October 13th, 2021, go to closed session at 2:29 under sections 239, subsection 3.1 of the Municipal Act.
Bill, I think you meant the 19th.
Yeah, that's why I stuttered over the 13th. I'm trying to look at my calendar. Yeah, it's.
Sorry, Mayor Kane, that's a typo. I'm
That's
sorry
okay.
about that.
That's all right. did stumble over it because I thought something was wrong with it. Thanks, Pat. I even looked at my calendar, but I got so much scribble on my calendar, I couldn't read the dates. So
I'll
we
make the
corrected that.
motion.
Thank you. Anyone to second it? Thanks, Scott. All in favor? So we'll be going into closed as soon as Daphne gets